And we're going to explore three key aspects of that language: attunement, boundaries, and repair.
Whether we know it or not, because it's often without words. And I would just invite you to think of the times you felt a shift in a room just by someone walking in.
I learned how to read the room constantly because my nervous system, it was tracking the tone of the voice, the facial expressions, and even the very smallest gestures. Welcome back to the Healing You Method podcast. I'm Gloria Lybecker, and I'm here with my dear friend and co-host, Gail Donohue.
Hi, everyone. It's so good to be with you again. Today, we're diving into a theme that shows up in every relationship, whether at home, at work, or even within ourselves. And that is the language of the nervous system.
And we're going to explore three key aspects of that language: attunement, boundaries, and repair. And they really are essential, not only for building safe, connected relationships, but for cultivating resilience within our own bodies and our lives.
Yeah, and let's just start here. Our nervous system is always communicating with us, whether we know it or not, because it's often without words. And I would just invite you to think of the times you felt a shift in a room just by someone walking in. You didn't need them to say anything. Your body was it already knew and it was already talking.
Yeah. I remember growing up, I learned how to read the room constantly because my nervous system, it was tracking the tone of the voice, the facial expressions, and even the very smallest gestures. And this was the way that I learned to stay safe as a child.
And that's so relatable. I also learned to scan for danger and stay small because staying small kept me safer. And now, as I've grown up, we can bring awareness to these patterns and realize they were strategies of survival. I just had a story I'll share with you, what an event that happened just the other evening at a family gathering. We people were talking, but then there was one person who often doesn't read the energy of the room, and so took the dialogue into a direction, and you could just feel the whole energy
Mm,
shift, and people started to get uncomfortable, and then as a result, the conversation totally changed its tone, and the
mm,
energy was ramped up.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about attunement because that's actually there is attunement there, but it's more of a disattunement.
Yeah.
It becomes dysregulating. So, attunement is when someone really gets you, and has a completely different felt sense there. They get you where you are emotionally, they get you physically, and you really it's the catch it in the look of their eye, the tone of the voice, and they really have a sense of presence that's there with you, that really you have the felt sense of mattering and that they're really with you.
Right. Yes, right. So right. And our nervous system relaxes when it feels that resonance.
Yes.
Babies need this from caregivers to build secure attachment. And as adults, we need it in our relationships.
We do. I remember there's a real tender moment when I was working with a client and they were uncovering some pretty tender stuff from when they were young. And they were very dysregulated at the moment. And so I sat close and just breathed, just really dropped into my body. We were actually outside sitting on the ground. And having that kind of just slowing it down and just being really present and tuning in like that, I could hear as her own breathing changed. And then she kind of looked up and she looked at me, and I could see that a shift had actually happened. It was really powerful.
Yeah, it can be so powerful. And I have a story about one of my children, my daughter, when she was struggling and going through a really challenging time and was having trouble just getting up and dealing with everyday life. And I, was consciously doing things differently to try to support her. And there was one time where I just sat with her and I didn't use a lot of words at all. And I just said, wow, this is so hard. And she just like melted into my arms
Mm,
and had, the tears come and, the presence with being with her just helped her to feel that, oh, she gets me. I don't have to hold this brave front anymore. I don't have to pretend it's not as bad as it is
mhm.
for me. So it was so helpful. Yeah, it
Yeah,
showed to me how important it is.
yeah, yeah, it is really important just staying relational like that. And
Yeah.
even for myself, when I put my hand, this is a practice I've developed. I'll put my hand on my own skin here, which releases the oxytocin, and I'll just whisper softly to myself or silently to myself that I'm here, you know. And my body actually shifts because that's self-attunement, really developing my own compassionate witness that's always with me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so beautiful. Well, let's just pause together here, right here
Mm,
and now for a moment, and just invite you to place a hand on your heart and your other hand on top of your hand as if it feels comfortable, and just slow down your breath and just take a moment to notice, what's here for you right now in
mm,
this moment. What if you can just connect and
mm.
put to the side any of the thoughts of to-do lists or what's coming next and just notice what might be true for you. Hmm.
Yeah, I know I have had a bit of a tender heart this morning. Um,
Hmm.
and just really from that connection, though, that self-connection, just recognizing from that attunement, that's where boundaries can actually become recognizable as well. Because those boundaries aren't walls or gates. They're living signals within us, giving us cues that something's either like perhaps it's too close or it's too far or it feels unsafe, it's just out of balance. So important to really notice and um, recognize that cue.
Yeah. And those cues so important because they're trying to talk to us, as we said. But many of us were never taught to listen to those cues. In fact, we were probably, well, I know for myself, encouraged to override them in
Mhm.
order to keep the peace, or not bring anything to the attention that was out of the capacity of the family to deal with. And so it was important that I ignored them in order to belong.
Yeah.
But this is what's really key. Boundaries are our language of self-respect.
Mhm.
I've got a situation with just recalling um, a story with a client that had a sense they were doing something with a cat, and they really wanted to have a picture taken with the cat. And but they had a sense, their body was sort of saying, oh, I'm not sure if this cat feels safe enough to do this with yet, like I think we have a connection, but I don't know. Anyways, the cost of that decision and going forward and ignoring that intuition that was coming was that the cat ended up biting them. So
Ah,
they had to deal with that afterwards with, getting it checked out and looking after it. So it was, their body had a sense that something wasn't
yeah.
feeling right.
Yeah, when we overwrite that, there is a cost, isn't there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Boundaries allow us to say yes when we mean yes and no when we mean no. They're not about forcing or pushing away others. They're about creating a space that's very authentic, where connection really thrives.
And again, let's pause here, Gloria, and let's invite our listeners in this time to think of a recent moment when your body said no, even if the words coming out of your mouth were yes.
Mm,
What would it look like to honor your body's signal of that no next time?
mm. Like a couple of things come to mind for me really fast. Actually, took care of one of them this morning. This is where there's a repair that happens, because none of us quote get it right with attunement and boundaries all the time. We do miss cues, or we push them down, we ignore them, we cross lines. And repair, thank goodness, repair is what lets us come back together within ourselves and within our relationships with others.
Yeah, exactly. And you might be wondering, what does it repair sound like? What's this thing repair that you could do? Well, it might sound like something like, I can see I didn't hear you fully, and I want to understand better. Would you share that again, please? Or you might say, I notice I raised my voice. I imagine that might have felt a bit alarming. Are you open to sharing how it was for you in this experience?
Mhm. Yeah. And when this happens, this is so magical. This repair actually strengthens the bond. I love the analogy of a rose bush. When when if we don't tend them, they can become brambles all over the place. But when we tend to the rose bushes and we prune them back, they become thicker and stronger. So this is kind of like tending to our own. Feels kind of thorny to me sometimes. Like I'm kind of scared, don't want to reach out and say something to somebody, and yet to really be in congruence within myself. So my yes is yes and my no is no. Then I need to have the courage to voice my truth. And boy, um, I do feel safer when I follow through and I do that. I feel safer within myself when I'm honest in this way.
Yeah.
There's an experience I can share. Actually, when I was first starting out in my business and I was working with a colleague and we were holding some classes together, and there were times where we just would kind of cross over and step on one another's boundaries. So we actually made a decision that we would, at the end of every class, we would take time and we would go over and we'd do redos. We'd say, how was that for you? And we would name and be honest about it. And then we would give empathy to one another and we would strengthen. And we even got to where we would do that and we would use it the next week as an example, and we
Mm.
would demonstrate how we did that. And it really did help me get much stronger and braver because that was not easy work when I started doing it. What about you? Do you have a
Yeah. Oh, well, I can so relate to what you said about how the relationship grows stronger after doing a repair.
Mhm.
I have, something similar with a friend, um, and bringing it forward, but I just want to say it was really scary to do it, like really, really scary. And
Mhm.
but and like my heart was pounding. I probably was. I felt like I was probably in like in a steam room or something with feeling so hot and activated. But um, my friend was able to hear and then attune back with me, and we just slowed it down enough. And it just ended up to be a beautiful discovery for myself, and also again just building that relationship stronger. And then the next time it was easier. It
Mhm.
didn't have that huge intensity, but I do want to say I would not necessarily do it with everyone. It was someone that I had trust with, and some feeling that we could have a dialogue. Again, not without having a lot of body activation and fear going into it, but it was so worth it.
Yeah, and so I'm glad you brought that up. And so I do want to encourage people when they're, if this isn't a familiar practice, that to take your time and get support for what it's like to be you first before you reach out to the person that you were activated in relationship with. And
Mhm.
sometimes then that's enough, but it's a practice and to be gentle with yourself.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah, so today we've explored how our nervous system communicates without words and how attunement, boundaries, and repair, they're all part of that language.
And we invite you to start practicing in these small ways as well. And just practice attuning to yourself as we did today with a hand on your heart and see what is true for you. And also connecting with honoring your body's signals, hearing what's being said. And when rupture happens, because it's not if, it's a when, lean into that repair.
Yeah. And for me, a daily practice that I'm doing, and I'm doing it, it's not just once a day. It's like some days it's like every 5 minutes. But just noticing my body, being honest within me. So my repairs start here. And when I've repaired here, then I'm empowered to repair with others. That's
Mm,
just by slowing down and practicing presence within myself.
yeah, yeah. And for me, it's interesting with starting small. It's taking a while, but it's it's getting better as I'm seeing the benefits of doing it is slowing down. So I do connect with myself, and that's been so supportive. And I'm seeing now and looking back over, the last 6 months or so, couple of months, it's just I'm getting more information and it's getting easier. So it's really been helpful. So, Gloria, that leads us beautifully into our next episode, which is where we're going to be talking about the two trees within, creating from empowerment versus survival.
Yeah. And we're going to be exploring how to recognize that inner split between the empowered and the disempowered self and what practices actually strengthen our ability to choose from our center and the role of the nervous system, how safety plays in manifestation.
So until next time, may your body be your guide and your presence be your anchor.